You've always been the person people come to when they need calm, the one who doesn't escalate, who doesn't match energy for energy when someone is spinning out. But there's a cost to this that nobody sees. Because while others are releasing their emotions in real time, crying and yelling and processing out loud, you are sitting with everything internally, watching, listening, feeling the weight of other people's chaos press against your nervous system while maintaining a composure that makes them think you're unaffected. And maybe you've started to wonder if something is wrong with you. If your inability to tolerate emotional drama means you're cold or disconnected, or somehow less human than the people around you who seem to thrive on intensity. You're not cold, you're regulated. And that regulation is not a lack of feeling. It's a highly developed capacity to feel without losing yourself in the feeling. And it's rarer than you think. The aversion to emotional drama is rooted in something psychologists call high emotional differentiation. This is the ability to experience emotions as distinct separate events rather than as an overwhelming flood that hijacks your entire system. When something upsetting happens, your brain doesn't immediately spiral into catastrophe. It registers the emotion, identifies it, and processes it without letting it consume every other thought and function. This creates a kind of internal spaciousness that people who are emotionally reactive simply don't have access to in moments of distress. Most people experience emotions as totalizing. When they're angry, they are anger. When they're sad, they are sadness. The emotion becomes their entire identity in that moment, and it demands expression. Their nervous system floods with cortisol and adrenaline. Their prefrontal cortex goes offline, and they lose access to rational thought. This is why people say and do things in emotional moments that they later regret. Because in that state, they're not operating from their whole self. They're operating from the part of the brain that's in survival mode, trying to discharge the overwhelming energy coursing through their system. But if you have high emotional differentiation, your prefrontal cortex stays online even when you're upset. You can be angry and still think clearly. You can be sad and still function. You can feel hurt and still choose your response rather than simply reacting. This doesn't mean you don't feel things deeply. It means you have a larger container for those feelings. Your nervous system can hold intensity without it spilling over into chaos. And this is a skill, not a deficiency, even though it often gets treated as one. The problem is that in a culture that equates emotional expression with emotional honesty, your lack of drama reads as detachment. People assume that if you're not visibly upset, you must not care as much. That if you're not raising your voice, or crying, or needing to talk it out immediately, you're suppressing something. And maybe you've internalized this too. Maybe you've wondered if your calm is actually avoidance. Your ability to stay steady is just a sophisticated form of running away from your feelings. But there's a difference between suppression and regulation. Suppression is pushing emotions down because they're too threatening to acknowledge. It's a defensive strategy that keeps you from feeling what's actually there. Regulation, on the other hand, is feeling what's there and choosing how to respond to it. It's letting the emotion move through you without letting it control you. And this is what you're doing when you refuse to engage with drama. You're not avoiding your feelings. You're refusing to let them dictate your behavior in ways you'll later regret. What's happening neurologically is that your vagus nerve, which connects your brain to your body and helps regulate your stress response, has a high baseline tone. This means your nervous system naturally returns to equilibrium more quickly than most people's. When something triggering happens, you might feel your heart rate increase, your breath quicken, your body preparing for action. But within moments or minutes, your vagus nerve kicks in and brings you back down. It sends signals that say you're safe, that this isn't an emergency, that you can handle this without going into fight or flight. People with lower vagal tone don't have this same capacity for self-soothing. When they get upset, their nervous system stays activated for much longer. They need external regulation, which is why they seek out conversations, validation, reassurance from others. They need someone else to help them calm down because their internal systems can't do it efficiently on their own. And there's nothing wrong with this. It's just a different wiring. But it means they genuinely cannot understand your experience. Of being able to sit with discomfort without needing to immediately resolve it through expression or connection. This is why you often feel exhausted around people who create a lot of emotional drama. It's not that you're judging them or think you're better than them. It's that their dysregulation pulls at your regulation. When someone is in emotional chaos, they're unconsciously trying to co-regulate, to use your nervous system to stabilize their own. And if you're highly sensitive to other people's emotional states, which many people with high differentiation are, you can feel this pull viscerally. You can feel them trying to discharge their overwhelm onto you. And your system resists it because it knows that taking on their chaos will destabilize your own carefully maintained equilibrium. So you create distance. Not because you don't care, but because you've learned that you can't help someone regulate if you become dysregulated yourself. You've learned that matching someone's intensity doesn't actually calm them down. It just creates more chaos. And you've learned that the most loving thing you can do sometimes is to remain steady while someone else falls apart, to be the ground beneath their feet when everything else feels unstable. But this often gets misread as coldness. People want you to mirror their emotions back to them as proof that you understand. They want to see you get as upset as they are. And when you don't, when you stay calm and rational and focused on solutions rather than wallowing in the problem, they feel unseen. They interpret your regulation as a lack of empathy. And you're left in this impossible position of either abandoning your own nervous system needs to perform an emotional intensity you don't actually feel, or accepting that some people will always think you're too detached. Most of the time, you choose authenticity. You choose to stay in your calm even when it costs you connection. Because pretending to be more emotional than you are feels dishonest. And because somewhere deep inside, you know that your steadiness is valuable. That the world needs people who don't add fuel to fires. Who can be present with pain without becoming consumed by it. Who can hold space for others without losing themselves in the process. This trait often develops in childhood, usually in environments where emotional stability was scarce. Maybe you grew up around adults who were unpredictable, whose moods swung wildly, who created drama that you had no control over. And you learned early that the only way to survive that chaos was to become the opposite of it. To cultivate an internal calm that couldn't be shaken by external storms. To develop a nervous system that could stay regulated no matter how dysregulated the people around you became. Or maybe you grew up in an environment that was emotionally flat, where feelings were ignored or minimized, and you learned that expressing emotion didn't get you anywhere. So you developed the ability to process things internally, to sit with discomfort without needing anyone else to validate or soothe it. Either way, you became someone who doesn't need external drama to feel alive, who doesn't equate intensity with intimacy or conflict with connection. The challenge is finding people who understand this about you, who don't mistake your calm for apathy, who recognize that you care deeply even when you're not performing that care in emotionally demonstrative ways. These people are rare because most of the world is oriented toward emotional expression as the primary language of connection. But when you find someone who can meet you in that quiet space, who appreciates your steadiness rather than trying to shake it, the relationship has a different quality. It's deeper, more sustainable, built on something solid rather than the temporary high of emotional intensity. There's also a loneliness in being this way, a sense that you're always witnessing other people's emotions from behind glass, that you can see them, understand them even, but you're not participating in the same way. You're the observer, the stabilizer, the one who stays calm while everyone else falls apart. And sometimes you wonder what it would be like to just lose it. To let yourself be as messy and chaotic and unfiltered as everyone else seems to be. To stop being the responsible one, the steady one, the one who holds it together. But when you imagine it, when you think about what it would actually feel like to let go like that, something in you recoils. Because you've seen what happens when people lose control of their emotions. You've watched relationships implode over things that could have been resolved with a calm conversation. You've seen people say things in anger that shatter trust in ways that can't be repaired. You've witnessed the aftermath of emotional explosions and decided, consciously or not, that you will not be that person. That you will not cause that kind of damage. That you will not let your feelings override your values. And so you continue being the person you are, the one who processes internally, who stays calm in crisis, who doesn't need to broadcast every emotion to feel like they're real. And you accept that this will always set you apart. That some people will never understand you. That you'll be called cold by people who can't distinguish between emotional regulation and emotional absence. That you'll be expected to prove you care by performing intensity you don't feel. But you also know, in the quiet certainty of your own experience, that your way of being is not a deficit. That emotional maturity isn't about how intensely you feel. It's about what you do with what you feel. It's about maintaining your integrity even when you're upset. About choosing your words carefully even when you're hurt. About being able to hold your own pain without making it everyone else's problem. And these are capacities that serve you well, even when they're misunderstood. The people who matter will see this. They'll recognize that your calm is not indifference, but strength. That your refusal to engage in drama is not coldness, but boundary. That your ability to stay regulated in chaos is not detachment, but profound self-knowledge. And they'll value you for it, not in spite of it. They'll stop asking you to be more emotional and start appreciating that you're exactly emotional enough. That you feel everything you need to feel without letting those feelings control you. And maybe that's the real gift of this trait. Not that you don't feel, but that you feel without losing yourself. That you can be present with the full spectrum of human emotion, yours and others, without becoming destabilized by it. That you've learned to sit with discomfort, with uncertainty, with pain, or without needing to immediately resolve it through expression or action. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull you into reactivity, into drama, into chaos, your ability to stay grounded is not just valuable, it's essential. If you've recognized yourself here, if you felt the quiet exhaustion of being the steady one while wondering if anyone sees the cost, this moment might be worth marking. Not with noise or performance, but with whatever small acknowledgement feels true. A few words in the space below, perhaps, not for validation, but for visibility. So the next person who carries this same internal architecture knows they're not navigating it alone. That steadiness in chaos is its own kind of courage, even when the world calls it something else. We're building something here for those who feel deeply, but quietly. For minds that process storms without becoming them. For the ones who've learned that real strength doesn't announce itself. Keep honoring what your nervous system already knows about peace.